Hello and welcome to Business Points. This is a program where we highlight business issues concerning Nigeria and how we could make decisions, financial decisions as to how to invest our money, and also bring to you the latest news that will guide your company in making the right information and making the right decisions for that particular business of yours. My name is Ubong Usoro. I'm standing in for my colleague Kike Lomo Okere, who is the queen of business. Let's start with the Securities and Exchange Commission as they've mandated operators to register instruments by January. All right, so big news coming there from the SEC, that's the Securities and Exchange Commission here in Nigeria. They've actually announced during the ISA Conference 2025 that capital market operators must ensure all tradable instruments are registered, and operators publicly state their compliance level with effective deadline set for January 2026. The SEC compliance timeline under the new Investment and Security Exchange Act was reported at the coverage of the SEC's remark at ISA 2025. All right, so the ISA 2025 strengthens regulatory oversight of capital market products and add clarity on the registration and disclosure obligation. The SEC move is meant to close gaps that allowed financial instruments to be marketed and traded without formal registration, right? So this could have exposed investors to unregulated risk and create systemic congestion. To the immediate impact, so those who are in the market, we could talk about fund managers, people who have to get to register with SEC, register their instruments with SEC before 2026, January 2026, which is actually the deadline. We have those who are fund managers. We have fintechs who issue digital asset style products. We have structured product issuers and over-the-counter dealers, which will need to register with SEC, that's the Securities and Exchange Commission in Nigeria, before 2026 January. So I think you have December now. If you are any of this category, if you are a fund manager, if you are into the fintech business, if you are a digital asset style product marketer, if you are a structured product issuer, you have between now and January 2026 to register your instruments with the Securities and Exchange Commission here in Nigeria and get the confirmation of your registration status, update your prospectus, and disclose compliance with the Securities and Exchange Commission, because the non-compliant instruments could face delisting or enforcement action. And this is quite very laudable. For me, I think that this is a very beautiful one, because it's going to bring more confidence into the market. You know that if you are into that market, if you are a fund manager, if you are into the fintech business and you do transactions, you have to make sure that all of the instruments that you need to use for your transactions are legally registered in compliance with the Securities and Exchange Commission before January 2026. Of course, this will require legal compliance and product teams to act quickly ahead of 2026 January. All right, so just 1 month thereabout, because we are gradually getting into December, and you have December to get registered with the Security and Exchange Commission. All right, so the compliance deadline could pressure new temporary slow product launches, and marketers and operators will want to prioritize legal reviews and documentation. However, the long-term effect is that it could actually increase investor confidence and better price discovery and clearer market integrity. All right, so a lot of analysts who have spoken about this have also noted that tightened registration reduces information asymmetry and can expand institutional investor participation, because especially those who are investing in Nigeria from abroad, those who are investing in Nigeria from other countries, right? So they now have more confidence with our system, because this is about compliance. This is about making sure that we follow the legal routes, that we get the right regulations right. So I think this is good, and this is what some analysts are actually saying at the moment, yes, people could talk about compliance cost at the time, and maybe some companies have already pulled out product launches and have set timelines as to when they want to launch their products. We could bring all of these things into bed and talk about it. That are they going to postpone their products? Would more time have been needed? Maybe the SEC could have announced this in January, maybe even in July. So most of these companies can have more time to actually talk about this. And some could even talk about the fact that some companies have closed their books for 2025, but you still have maybe just the product team should get into work and make sure that all your instruments should be registered with the Security and Exchange Commission. All right, so the standard is about capital market practices, and we could talk about some of the risk smaller fintechs and startups could face disproportionate compliance costs, and regulators should provide transitional guidance and clear application process to avoid market disruption. And some of the recommendations that some persons have talked about, that firms should immediately conduct an instrument inventory, appoint a compliance lead, and engage with the SEC where uncertainty exists. I think this is quite very germane for those who are listening to us at the moment, and maybe they're thinking, what should you do? This is the time that you have to conduct an instrument inventory. What are the instruments you use for payment, digital platforms, fintech, fund managers? You have to look at all of these instruments and check an inventory of all of the instruments. Then go ahead to appoint a compliance lead or somebody who's in the compliance department who will actually take up this responsibility to interface with SEC and make sure that this registration is done, so you could go ahead in 2026 and do your business very, very well without hitches here and there. So you need to get this registration, as a matter of fact, in soonest possible time, right? Get it done, because you have just 1 month to do it according to SEC. So appoint a compliance lead, and the compliance team should engage with SEC and make sure that wherever uncertainty exists and counsel is being done right, and this registration is done at the moment, because this is what SEC has actually come out to say, that all of those who are involved in this kind of business must make sure that they are registered before January 2026. So you just have about just 1 month to get on with the registration and get to business, because 2026, especially for those who are fund managers, fintech, those who are into the digital space, digital assets like Bitcoin, you could just go ahead mentioning their names. Securities and Exchange Commission says you need to come do this particular registration before January 2026, and this was said at the ISEC conference. All right, so important news coming in, because SEC has mandated operators to register all their instruments before January 2026 now. All right, so and we need to know this, and operators need to get to work immediately. Remember, I said this was announced during the Securities and Exchange Commission meeting, ISA meeting 2025 in Lagos, and they said capital market operators must ensure all tradable instruments are registered. All tradable instruments are registered, right? So whatever tradable instruments are used in that space, fintech, fund managers, hedge managers, everybody in that particular ecosystem must get registered before 2026. That's the first story we're bringing to you this morning from the Securities and Exchange Commission, who actually act as the regulatory and oversight commission for market capitalization and funds and businesses that move money from one place or the other, or trade and do marketing, as to using this instrument, because they've talked about how unregulated risk created by the systemic congestion of this particular business, right? Especially when we have a lot. Just some days ago, the Securities and Exchange Commission also came out to speak about the fact that some persons get involved in Ponzi schemes, and these are one of the reasons, because if some schemes are not registered appropriately by the government, people could get involved, right? And that's why SEC is saying before January, let's start the new year on a very good note, that every body who is involved in the financial sector, who trades instruments, are registered. So the space is no longer unregulated, and it doesn't create this systemic congestion that we keep seeing, but it is better well regulated, because the registration will help, right, for you to do the right and get the right information. So could also reach out on time. So I think for me, it's actually a good one. And fund managers, fintech, those who issue digital asset style products, structured products, issuer, and even over-the-counter dealers, this is the time for you to go confirm your registration status as a compliance issued by the Securities and Exchange Commission in Nigeria, because if you do not do that, you may end up losing investors who will be asking for this registration. All right, so it is time to get registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission of Nigeria. The next story we'll bring to you this morning, it's about Dangote. All right, so Dangote to triple fertilizer outputs begins $2.5 billion Ethiopia plant. All right, so this is scale, this is strategy, this is continent-wide impact. I read it again. Dangote to triple fertilizer output begins 2.5 billion Ethiopian plants. This is amazing scale for the richest man in Africa, Dangote's strategy, and a continent-wide import. So the announcement and project basis that the Dangote Group has announced a major expansion plan for its fertilizer operations, including a new 2.5 billion urea fertilizer complex in Ethiopia. All right, so this complex will be built in Ethiopia, Gode, and an effort to expand and triple fertilizer output all over Africa. All right, so Dangote, this is quite amazing. This is a big story. All right, so Dangote to triple fertilizer output as it begins a 2.5 billion Ethiopian plant. I remember the last time Dangote was in Ethiopia with the president, talking about some of the investment he's going to be bringing to that particular country. And there were a lot of talks about, even some Nigerians talked about the fact that why is Dangote going to Ethiopia to build this particular refinery? All right, we could talk about that, but let's look at the bigger story. This is Africa business opening up in Africa, where it's strategic that you could, actually meet in with other countries and interface with them, bring in employment, and, just do your business and keep making the money that you make. And a large-scale production to begin in Ethiopia as Dangote rolls out this particular refinery. So for me, scale, strategy, and continent-wide impact. Right, the announcement and project basis of Dangote Group has announced a major expansion plans for its fertilizer operations, including a new 2.5 billion urea fertilizer complex in Ethiopia, Gode, and an effort to expand and triple fertilizer output overall all over Africa, right? So part of the strategy is to make Africa self-sufficient in fertilizer and reduce dependence on imports. The new Ethiopian plant is reported to have very large amounts of annual capacity, and so from the report that we're getting, it's about 3 million, I beg your pardon, 3 million tons of urea per year from the Goda project in Ethiopia. And the Ethiopian Investment Holdings is also taking a significant equity stake in the joint venture structure. And I think let's get to the studio now, and let me just say a few things, right? This is model Dangote. This is textbook Dangote, right? This is actually a very amazing 2.5 billion, lots of money. That's a whole lot of money that is putting into Ethiopia. But it's not just putting his money alone. He's also made Ethiopia to, make some investments, with Ethiopian Investment Holding also taking a significant equity in that particular market. We saw that too when he was building the Lekki refinery. The federal government of Nigeria also took an equity and also put in a lot of money in that particular refinery. So yeah, it is called Dangote fertilizer plant in Ethiopia. But it's not just about Dangote. It's about the brand. It's about the scaling. It's about the investment that is bringing into that country, and also by extension the investment he is bringing into Africa. And big one, 2.5 million. I like saying billion. Maybe one of these days he's going to do a 2.5 billion US dollars project. But this is actually amazing. And Dangote is also accelerating fertilizer production, saying he wants Africa to become self-sufficient as far as fertilizer is actually concerned. All right. At the moment, we know that Africa imports millions of tons of fertilizer every year. Annually, local production reduces foreign exchange outflow. Of course, we know that. And when we talk about importing fertilizer into Africa, we talk about how it's going to be affecting our foreign exchange and how it's going to be affecting our market here in Africa. But with this, maybe the days of importing fertilizer into Africa will be far gone. So this stabilizes, just looking at that Africa actually imports millions of tons of fertilizer annually, and local production reduces foreign exchange overflows. But with this, it will stabilize domestic Dangote is able to do this, and it comes out very well. We don't need foreign exchange to buy fertilizer again. We just go ahead and keep buying, and fertilizer prices could actually reduce. Let's talk about fertilizer prices in Nigeria. We know, especially in the north, a lot of people need fertilizer to actually grow their crops and to actually do the farming. We need fertilizer to fertilize our soil to actually bring out the kind of crops that could feed all of us in the country. And there have been debates about the production of fertilizer. People have talked about the fact that do we need it? Can we do it locally? And Dangote is saying, don't worry, I'm going to be doing it, but I'm doing it in Ethiopia for Africa. And maybe some of us who knows what it means when a factory is located in a place, will ask questions as to why wasn't it Nigeria. But remember, this is a 2.5 billion US dollars investment, and Ethiopia holding investment is taking an equity stake in it. So more like Dangote just doing 50% and Ethiopia also doing 50%. But Dangote's ambition is to earn fertilizer imports into Africa. There could be some experts that have talked about the fact that manufacturing capacity is necessary, and the success of a continent-wide supply shift is also necessary for reliable feedstock. We'll talk about the natural gas for urea, which Ethiopia have said they are going to be supplying to the Dangote logistics. That has also been a very major concern. Rail, ports, road, as a storage distribution network for smallholder farmers, and a conducive trade policy. All right, so these are all of the things that we're going to be looking at so that it doesn't become bottleneck. But good business strategy, good business thoughts, if you ask me, at the interim. Dangote to triple fertilizer output in Africa and begins the 2.5 billion US dollars Ethiopian plans. Let's go for our first break on the program. Let's get back to the studio now. All right, so let's go for our first break on the program, and when we're back, we'll still have lots of interesting business discussions to talk about this morning. Don't go nowhere. It's Business Point on Global Television. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Business Point on Global Television. My name is Ubongo Sora, standing in for my colleague Kike Lomo Okere, the Queen of Business. Now, let's look at all the stories that we're dropping for you at the business end at this moment. NNPCL spends 17.5 trillion securing fuel pipelines in a year. This is actually good business for those who are actually, those who got the contract to do this, all right? So the report that we're getting from the NNPCL end of year review is that the NNPCL, that's, we call it the Nigerian, right, who are in charge of the Nigerian petroleum industry, right, has actually come out to report that they spent a total of 17.5 trillion in 12 months on activities ranging from security of fuel pipelines in Nigeria. Okay, so these figures reflect the very high cost of protecting energy infrastructure in Nigeria amid vandalism, theft, and insecurity. And NNPCL is saying for us to provide our pipelines over the year to curtail vandalism, theft, and insecurity, this is how much we actually spent. And why are the costs so high? Of course, we've known that over time, Nigeria has faced persistent pipeline vandalism and oil theft for years. The state and even oil companies have responded with security contracts and private protection agreements, air surveillance, repairs, operational contingence measures. Recent reports also note increased coordination between NNPC and security agencies like the Nigerian Air Force to protect infrastructure. A combination of routine repairs, protective deployments, and security contracts can cumulatively reach this high amount of money. So a large share of NNPCL's resource spent on security and repairs eats into funds available for investment in productive upgrades like refinery rehabilitation, and we could even talk about refinery expansion in this case. All right, so but this is where we are, but we must try to look past this and see how this could be reduced to the barest minimum. These are some of the issues that our business people will be talking about as we go through our books this year. What have we done so well? Where can we make amends and go ahead to actually do well? All right, so we are going to be taking the last story for this morning, and that's about Africa. A last story this morning is about Africa. Africa should rely more on private capital. Statements from ministers at the Investment Forum and interpretation. All right, so multiple reports from the recent African Investment Forum meeting has captured a recurring message from ministers across Africa. Africa must pivot from heavy dependence on bilateral trade and constrained public budget towards mobilizing private capital to solve Nigeria's issue and Africa's issue. Domestic and internationally, Africa must start looking inward to raise capital and raise funds to cater for massive infrastructural projects and industrial financing gaps. All right, so we had Africa ministers converge at the All African and ECOFIN Agenda Summit here in Africa in Abidjan. Summarized this call for more private investments, better regulation, clarity, and project bankability. And we talked about the fact that Africa must start raising private funds to be able to put into concessional projects, finance massive infrastructural projects in Africa, and rebuild trust and confidence in the healthcare sector, in the business sector. Africa must think Africa. So at a major ministers forum here in Africa, we talked about as African ministers agreed that it is time Africa looks inward to be able to raise political will and risk mitigation and predictable revenues like available off-takers, user-free models, and visibility gap funding. Also even talk about the viability gap funding that could actually help us in Africa. So these ministers stress regulatory stability and investor protection as some of the things that Africa must do to be able to raise capital here in Africa. Those are all the stories we could take this morning for you. We still have a lot of stories, but yeah, we've run out of time and we could no longer take them this morning. But amazing that we'll keep coming to you every weekday. And on Monday, the Queen of Business herself, Kike Lomo Okere, will be back to tell you about what is happening in the world of business. But for now, I'm saying bye, and my name is Ubong Osora. When I come on the show, I like saying this, that we must do business and do the right business. Don't forget, Global Television is also open for business. You could come do business with us. We'd love to do business with you. My name is Ubong Osora, and I'm saying bye for now.